All right, welcome back, Truth Seeker. Just as a heads up, unfortunately, there's not going to be a TFR today.
In 1 mile,
keep right onto Cellar Road.
Because I did say last week I will not miss another TFR for a long time, and then sure enough, something came up for this Wednesday night, right when TFR is supposed to be. And I really do hope this is the long one I missed, or the last one I missed in a long time. But we'll do a little short mini stream, about an hour here. And of course, I talked this morning about Kanye West getting all the negative press and how ridiculous it is what Piers Morgan was ignoring about his point. But somebody did leave a comment. How come you didn't talk about what he was saying about George Floyd's death? And I'm glad that person left that comment and asked me that question, because I did catch that part. So Kanye West is saying that just like how when we look at JFK's death and we analyze it from 100 different angles, we should start looking more into George Floyd's death and thinking about more than just the official narrative that a racist cop who had no regard for his life kneeled on his neck and killed him. And Kanye's taken a page out of the Tucker Carlson playbook and saying George Floyd actually died from fentanyl. And again, you know, don't forget he died in Minnesota. And really the first time that fentanyl really got implanted in a lot of our minds was with Prince's death, right? Prince died in Minnesota by the numbers, and they said it was a fentanyl overdose. And if I'm not mistaken, they also blamed Tom Petty's death on that shortly after. But of course, fentanyl has become a crisis throughout the world in the time since. And let me take the more scenic route here. But again, this is the point I want to make.
use the right lane to
Keep right onto Cellar Road.
Really? It wants me to go that way? That way would be quicker. We'll go this way. Again, George Floyd dying in Minnesota on the corner of 38th Street. By the way, actually, before we even start to break this down, Kanye made a few points about George Floyd's death. If you have not seen his interview,
use the right lane to
Merge onto I-82 East.
if you've not seen, sorry, the navigation is on. I just need to
proceed to the route.
hold on.
In 2.2
Turn off the navigation.
Left onto East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
1 second. Okay. My bad. I was in a neighborhood I wasn't familiar with. I just needed to get back out to the main road. I should have turned it off before the video started. But anyhow, Kanye made a few points about George Floyd's death. And some of this is information I had never heard before. So definitely look into it more. But he said it's reported that George Floyd mentioned the day he died that he had prayed longer that day before his death than any other day. So that was something George Floyd mentioned to people close to him passing, that he really needed to pray a lot that day. And another thing that Kanye mentioned several times is, sorry, we got a guy kind of like, it seems like he's almost trying to get run over in traffic right now. But another thing he mentioned was that George Floyd mentioned to numerous people that he had been chosen for something because he was a taller guy. They wanted a taller guy like him. And so he threw those details out there. And then he also mentioned that it was actually a fentanyl overdose, which is what took George Floyd's life, which again is something Tucker Carlson put out. And you know, he wasn't real clear about his thoughts, but it was almost like he was suggesting that George Floyd had signed up for something. He prayed real hard, and you can draw your own conclusions from that. And possibly because of what he was involved with, he might have taken a lot of drugs that day to maybe just help with the whole experience, make it less painful, easier to do. So he's kind of floating all these ideas, right? By the way, if you guys are new here, I have a book out there called Number Games 9/11 to Coronavirus, and you wouldn't guess it by the title, but there's a huge component of that book that's about George Floyd's death. There's an entire chapter on George Floyd's death and where it all fits in. Don't forget, after he passed, they said he tested positive for COVID. But anyway, him dying on the corner of 38th Street. If you're new here, the reason the channel is called GematriaEffectNews, and then the number after it's what edition of the channel is, because it's been deleted so many times. But Gematria is the ancient practice of coding numbers into words. And in Gematria, death equals 38, so does murder, so does killing, so does fentanyl, and so does Minnesota. They all equal 38. Even the name Prince equals 38. And again, fentanyl was put on the map with Prince's death in his home in Chanhassen, Minnesota, and yes, even Chanhassen equals 38. All of those words, 38. Minnesota, Chanhassen, murder, death, killing, they're all 38. And again, George Floyd on the corner of 38th in Chicago in Minnesota, where he was reportedly killed. And now Kanye's bringing in, well, he's bringing back up this idea about fentanyl. And again, we talked about this a year or so ago when, it's probably been more than a year now, when Tucker Carlson started saying he actually died from fentanyl. Of course, Tucker Carlson's got to do his thing on Fox News. Fox News always has to have the racist angle, Look at the color of the skin of all those people in the surveillance footage of robbing the Louis Vuitton store. That's the kind of stuff they do on Fox News with Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity. And, but anyhow, interesting. It's interesting. Again, when you learn Gematria, you see where the numbers fit in. This story of essentially this ritual murder of this man on the corner of 38th Street. And, if you watch Kanye, he also compared it to JFK. I'd encourage everybody to go back and watch the footage of when the news was broken to the American people about JFK's death. JFK's death, the news was broken by Walter Cronkite. And when he says that JFK died, his exact words are, some 38 minutes ago, JFK was pronounced dead. Some 38 minutes ago. You think that was an accident? Yeah, again, this number is all over history. Again, so many rappers who have died by the 38 code, from Tupac to Notorious B.I.G. to a million more. And eventually my book will be done. Eventually Jonathan's book will be done. Again, Jonathan's writing the book on hip-hop deaths, and his book will be titled 38 Special. And his daughters made him a really cool cover for the book as well. But that's something to look forward to for the Gematria community when Jonathan finishes his project. But 38 Special. And again, Kanye's alluding to the fact that he was chosen. He knew he was chosen. He'd agreed to it. And then just the question becomes, why would you agree to such a thing? He's vague about it, but, did George Floyd know he was going to die that day? It sounds like he probably knew it was dangerous. Praying longer than you've ever prayed before. A lot of times when you do something you don't want to do, or have to do something you don't want to do, you might, get real drunk or, take something because, you're more out of it. So, and as I recall, I'd have to go back and look at the George Floyd. It did seem kind of like he was foaming at the mouth a little bit, but several things could cause that, including having your oxygen supply cut off. So, yeah, again, I think people, Kanye West, I think what he's doing, in a way, it is kind of a distraction, but still at the same time, they're having him put out information for a certain reason, certainly for the conflict it'll cause in society, and the arguments and the water cooler talk will start. But he is dropping some clues that are things people really should think about. And again, Piers Morgan he was saying these things, was kind of dismissive of it all and just treating it like, oh, well, this is just conspiracy talk. We all surely saw what happened. It was just a racist white cop. And what did Kanye say to that? He said, well, I think he was in on it too. Like, he was chosen. And don't forget that George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, they both worked security at the same restaurant slash bar, nightclub, whatever you want to call it. That was also another one of the coincidences in the story. And, even more importantly, than that, again, but besides, if that's just the case that George Floyd, remember, George Floyd had connections to the entertainment world, right? He had worked in the world of pornography, he not just shot his own film, but worked with actual porn stars. Apparently he had a connection to the hip hop scene in Houston. And again, if you guys are new here, this number thing, it really does show that what Kanye is saying about it being planned and somewhat theatrical, again, the evidence is there. He very well was chosen because of his name. He might have been tall and had the right name. Remember, his full name, George Perry Floyd, equals 201. And his baby mama's name, Roxy Washington, equals 201. And his death was protested in Paris, France, along with the name Adama Traore, who was killed the same way in Paris, France, exactly 201 weeks before George Floyd. And Adama Traore was killed on the 201st day of the year. And if you're new here, this 201 number, it is the number of the Jesuit order. It's not an arbitrary number to the Jesuits. There's a reason that the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, who's the Pope while all this is going on, is the first to live in Suite 201. Again, his birth name equals 201. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, just like the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius Loyola, 201. But remember, George Floyd was reportedly killed on Memorial Day to remember the dead from the American Civil War. And shout out to Patrick. I appreciate that, Patrick. But again, after George Floyd died, all over the nation, Confederate statues were torn down, just like how Memorial Day is to remember the dead from the Civil War, which, the southern half of the war was the Confederates. And by the way, the word Confederate, if you just run the alphabetic order in reverse, Confederates 201. But remember, on June 19th, which is now Juneteenth, well, it's always been Juneteenth, but now it's a national holiday. June 19th, 2020, 1 year to the day of it becoming a national holiday, the only Confederate statue in D.C. fell. Albert Pike's statue. And the only reason there was a Confederate statue in D.C. of Albert Pike's because he's a really important Freemason, and D.C. is known as the Masonic City. But again, from the day that statue fell to the day of the Capitol insurrection where the Confederate flag flew, the nation's capital hadn't seen anything like that since the Civil War. But from the day that the Confederate statue fell to the January 6th insurrection, 201 days. And again, the majority of the world writes that day 6/1 like 61, like the American Civil War happened in 1861. And again, all of these things are being contrived and they're planned and they're all for the sake of agenda to keep people divided, fighting. And again, they're all bringing about chaos. The Jesuit Masonic motto is order out of chaos. Create these problems, and then bring about their solutions. And again, we see what their ongoing solutions are. Less and less rights for everybody, more and more of a surveillance state, more police, more militarism. There has been a temporary, scaling back of police, but you see what's happening in all these communities where they did this. Now people are begging for more police because crime's risen, and that's exactly what we predicted in the beginning. They're only taking it back so they can eventually give you even more and bring you into even more of a police state. And again, all of these numbers, all of these perfect patterns on all these rituals. 201's pretty much going on every major ritual on the big television stage from 9/11, where two towers became zero before it became one. And with regards to 9/11, remember, George Perry Floyd is 201, but just the name George Floyd alone is 119. And so is Civil War, for the record. But 119, like the way the majority of the world writes the date 11/9, the 11th day of the 9th month, the 11th of September, And again, the first plane supposedly hit the building at 8:46. They had to come out at first and say a million times that the officer was on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And I know since then they've added 43 more seconds. Civil War, if you use numerology, equals 43, as does George Floyd. And that's a big number with Lincoln, just for the record, the Civil War president who was killed in a big Jesuit ritual, nonetheless. But, and who also said there never would have been a civil war without the sinister influence of the Jesuits. But again, yeah, Kanye, he's suggesting that there's a conspiracy to George Floyd's death, just like there's a conspiracy to JFK's death. And guess what? That same 201 number is part of the JFK ritual. And who was killed in Dealey Plaza, named after a Mason. Again, modern Freemasonry is a Jesuit creation. I don't know if Kanye, somebody left a long message today. Actually, it was an email they sent me. And I did respond back to them. They sent me an email thinking, they said that they think Kanye is actually legit. Like he's actually trying to speak out about a legit problem and bring attention to a real problem. And he very well might be, But I reminded that person, I said, it's possible, but I said, don't forget he's the same guy that said in his own song that he sold his soul for a Happy Meal, So again, a lot of musicians have confessed in their music that they've sold their soul. And Kanye West is another one of them. And I mean, just because you sold your soul doesn't mean you can't tell the truth. So I do think he's right about bringing so much attention to the you-know-who's. I saw in that same Piers Morgan interview, he said that he said at all times, Kim Kardashian has a bunch of Zionist handlers around her. His wording, Zionist handlers around her at all times. And I don't doubt that for a second. And to me, though, it's just like if you're Kanye West and you're really trying to get people to wake up, why do an interview with Piers Morgan? I mean, Piers Morgan's not going to have a real conversation with you. He's a TV goon. It's like, why not as already a mega famous person, why not try to elevate other people who are speaking out and sharing information that's similar to the ideas you're putting out, but complements yours and takes it to a whole new level. So, again, CeeLo Green, for example, he might have sold his soul too, who knows? But CeeLo Green literally took my YouTube video and put it on his Instagram channel. So it's just, Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian. If you guys, that's still my favorite moment from the world of celebrity. So somebody came on his show and was telling him all about a book. And he goes, hold on, you want to talk about books? And then he goes away from the screen. You see, he walks down the hallway. And then he comes back. He goes, I got a book for you. And he pulls it out. And I couldn't believe it. It was my book. I would have never known that if somebody had not sent me the video to show me that. But again, there are people in the world. We got Jeff Young, the guitarist of Megadeth, who's been sharing our work since 2015, of course. Shout out to Jeff Young. I hope everyone supported him who could. His band just went on the little mini tour, and it looks like it was a successful tour, so it looks like there will be more if you missed him the first time around. But yeah, Kanye West, if you're out there and you're serious about this stuff, stop wasting your time with frauds like Piers Morgan and link up with the real true speakers and the people who know what's going on and have already been exposing it for all these years. But yeah, his thoughts and ideas, they're interesting. And again, I got to admit, I'm super skeptical of Kanye West. And I feel like he's just doing what he's told just so he can get the ritual shaming, like I said this morning. They like to do this every so often. The celebrity who speaks up and says something about Mel Gibson did this years ago, right? And then Mel Gibson got all the backlash. So there's been many more. Who's the politician who said, I can't think of the politician. I cannot think of his name right now, but he also spoke out about a decade or so ago, said the same types of things. And you remember how he died? They said a driving lawnmower went over him in a freak accident. And what day did that happen to him on? It happened on September 27th, the day that I can remember what day the man was killed. I just can't think of his name right now. But the politician who said similar things to what Kanye is saying right now, the lawnmower went over him in a freak accident. I'm sure that's exactly how it was. I'm sure he just fell off his riding lawnmower and it just drove over him and killed him. Well, think about what an evil way that's a horrible way to die. And that's probably part of the reason people don't speak out, right? They don't want to be the next one to have the lawnmower go over them. But you know what? I mean, the way I see it is, even if that's like ends up being my fate someday because of all that I've done, maybe someday I end up with under the lawnmower. It does sound gruesome, and you don't want that to happen, but it would be relatively quick, and at least you could go out knowing you did the right thing while you were on this earth. People are so afraid to do the right thing because they're afraid of the consequences. You could lose your job. I can tell you all about that. Yeah, maybe you can lose your life too. But yeah, the Kanye West George Floyd remarks are definitely interesting. So again, you got he didn't say his sources. Like, where did he? Again, he's part of the hip hop community, like George Floyd was on a much smaller scale. So maybe just being in those avenues, you hear things about what he was saying to his family that day and whatnot. But yeah, according to Kanye, George Floyd prayed more than ever that day and let his family know, and told everybody that he'd been recruited because they were looking for a big man like him, but he was vague about what he was recruited for. So, and again, people in desperate situations, they'll do things, right? With regards to 201, remember that movie everybody was talking about, or a TV show, I should say, about a year ago it came out, right? About a year ago it came out, the movie out of Korea. I'm trying to think what it's called right now. Squid Game. And, the big thing that happens that really catches everybody's attention early on in that show is the mass murder that you didn't see coming. And how many people are left after the mass murder? It goes from 500 people down to 201. And again, if you haven't seen Squid Game, what it's about is a group of billionaires annually. They recruit people who are financially desperate. And again, they have access to all their personal information, credit score, bank accounts, debt. And again, because they're the billionaires that own the companies that control everyone's data, just like I always hear about all these massive data breaches, new record data breach. It's like, it's not hard to see what's really going on. But anyway, people are approached. Somebody comes up to them and says, hey, you're invited to play this game. You can win all this money. And again, they're going and seeking out the most desperate people. And then it's kind of like the Ice-T surviving the game thing, which I brought up earlier in a way. But, they're told they'll play children's games. And, hey, how harmless could that be to play children's games and potentially win millions of dollars? Okay, I'll try it out. Well, they find out that these children's games, every time you don't win, you die. And that's what they're not told, but then they find out in the most harshest of ways. Again, if you haven't seen Squid Game, they're playing red light, green light. That's the first game that the group of 500's asked to play, red light, green light. You remember that when you were a kid, right? Somebody stands far away, everybody else lines up in a line and has to get to that person. And the person says, green light, and you go, and then red light, and you have to stop. But if you keep going after he says red light or you fall forward, you have to start back over. Well, not in this version in Squid Game. If you move after red light, there is what they have is like this, AI-controlled machine gun that's like looking at everybody in the group and can shoot every last person that moved. It's that good. It's that sophisticated. But yeah, after that infamous scene, 201 people remain. And could be what's going on in a lot of these psychological operations. Like, where did these people come from? Why did that person go do that anyway? Were they put up to it? MK Ultra, of course, is another thing. They hinted at that in the show Utopia. And don't forget the sick 201 joke they just had with Utopia this year. Again, the Georgia Guidestones, which say reduce the Earth's population to 500 million. they came down this year, 201 days after the Pope's birthday, of course, on George W. Bush's birthday, and those things also had the Skull and Bones imprint on them, which is another 201 society. But again, the day they came down, the man who coined the term utopia, that was his birthday anniversary, or it might have been his death anniversary. It was either his birthday anniversary or his death anniversary. The author who coined the term utopia, it was his anniversary, the day the Georgia Guidestones came down. And again, in the new hit show Utopia, it's about billionaires reducing the population by faking a pandemic and then killing off and mass sterilizing humanity with a vaccine, which Amazon was nice enough to remake the show in 2020, just after the pandemic was declared. But, and obviously they were making the show before the pandemic was declared, so the release time, I guess, was just a big coincidence. And not to mention all the 201 rituals Jeff Bezos did that year as well. Or that Event 201 was the coronavirus pandemic simulation. Again, George Floyd testing positive for COVID. But, yeah, again, all these things from the world of entertainment that they give us are really clues about the plots that are taking place and planned and still to come. And we just need a culture where more people speak up. And it can't be the Kanye West of the world, because the thing about Kanye West speaking up, even if he is trying to be sincere, he's already been demonized to the majority of the population, right? People have heard that he has mental problems, he's unstable, so this is already a ton of people's perception about him. So when they hear him talking about conspiracy theories, the media has already done a good job of programming so much of the populace to think that conspiracy theories are directly related to mental illness. So having Kanye do this, it fits in with what they've already programmed. And yeah, so also in other news today, some of you follow another channel, and they had a live stream going. There were 3 men on the panel, and I wasn't familiar with any of the 3 people before I went on, but they had a live stream going called Gematria, making fun of Gematria or Gematria. And somebody asked me to go on there and defend the research. And they weren't actually attacking me and my message. They were attacking Marty Leeds. And if you guys don't know who Marty Leeds is, that's probably for the best. He's not a serious person. He's a nobody. But I could understand why they're attacking him, because his work is garbage. His work's pointless. His work doesn't help with anything. It's pretty much nonsensical. The guy is knowledgeable about some things, but his work is mostly trash. And anyway, I went on there and I explained to him why people should not refer to this as Gematria and just disregard it and say it's all stupid, because all they've heard is what Marty Leeds had to say. And I started to explain to him why I've studied the subject and taught about it, so that people can see through what's really going on in the world, from 9/11 to George Floyd to a million other things, to the deaths of people like Prince. I would die for you, with the number 4, the letter U, and then he dies on 4/21. But anyway, I went on there and explained it. And I didn't know anything about this channel, but all 3 of the men were on there. They're all Christian. And what they said back to me is, they said, well, we like your take and the way you're explaining it. It makes sense. But they said, if you study this and research the things that they're into, you'll become more like them. And this is not the Christian way. And essentially, all you can do as a person on this earth is connect yourself with Christ. And, information like this, it might help shine more light on the evil, but there's nothing we can do about the evil in this world. And that's why we should just connect with Christ and be happy in Christ's name. Essentially, that's what they're saying. And of course, I've heard this all a million times, and I said back to them, what it reminded me of is just like, again, people are just set in their ways and their beliefs. Again, the word with lie right in the middle. All three of them were of the same opinion, that the world will always be evil, and all you can do is believe in Jesus and connect with Jesus and let Jesus be your savior. And that's what we're supposed to do here. And again, you guys, it's why if I could choose it, I would never have another interaction in my life with anyone who's religious or thinks or believes like that, because it's just so depressing to me. And I let them know that I said, well, if that's what your guys' channel is about, I said, well, to me, you guys are part of the problem too, because you guys have taken the book given to you by the same controlling authority that runs your government and your nightly news, who taught you to turn the other cheek and give Caesar what's his and just wait for your savior and do nothing, because all you can do is do nothing in this evil world. And I said, you guys are doing exactly what they want. If I was an evil ruler, I would love to give my people a book that just made them believe that they could just do nothing, and the world's just going to be evil forever, and no amount of knowledge or information is going to change anyone's. So I know this is a separate discussion from what the video is about, but yeah, anytime I talk to religious people, I get on such a low vibration. It's not an accident, you guys, that religion and retard both sound so similar to each other and both start with that re. Again, like taking you backwards, stunt you, stop you. And again, there's just so much damage done to people's minds at a young age. Again, the reason religion is put on us at a young age is the same reason we get all the authority crap that's put on us at a young age. That's all fear-based and meant to control you from day one and just take over your mind, and you just never escape it. It's just people's beliefs. It's just like, who cares about what you believe? What's what you believe matter? Let's talk about what's real, what's evidence-based. So... And speaking of Kanye, yeah, exactly. Kanye's another guy that told everybody to believe in Jesus. So that should tell you a lot right there. Jesus walks. Shout out to Math Tucon. He needs some more support. Yeah, absolutely. Religion, what was given to us to maintain a certain order, and all things good and bad. If I had to choose between a society of, well, I honestly do think that when more of America was Christian, when that was the predominant religion, just because that was the religion of the land, it does seem like morality is just going down along with people's religious beliefs. And it doesn't need to be that way. I don't know. It's a tough subject. I just wish people, and again, what was funny to me is, if you guys want, if anyone, I posted the link on my Twitter for the conversation I had with these guys, but they were all trying to argue that the golden rule isn't good enough. They're trying to make arguments like, well, you could be going to an orgy where, everybody agreed to the orgy and you'd still be doing the golden rule. And to me, it's like, well, I don't know. Orgies aren't my thing. I don't want to go to an orgy. To me, it seems kind of gross. It's just, but for the group of people that want to do that, I mean, if all they're doing is having orgies, as long as they're not robbing my house and lying to me and going on the news and trying to push false agendas. Hold on one second, you guys. I'll be right back. Hold on. All right. Sorry. Had to respond to Sweet Lady real quick. But again, I always feel like that happens with Christians too. Just everything comes back to sex. And I don't know. It was an interesting conversation, but it was just like, God. So again, I mean, I just feel like anytime I talk to religious people, I can't believe, I hate to use that word, but I just can't, I can't comprehend the way their minds work. I'm like, you're seriously saying that it's just terrible, man. It's like almost all Christians are the exact same. Everybody's born a sinner. The world's an evil place. It's just an evil place. The prophecy of the evil's being fulfilled. All we can do is believe in Jesus. It's like, God, what a just a like. It sounds like a mental illness, really, to me. It's like a bad cult with a mentally ill perspective. You know? It's like, I wonder why the world's so evil. I wonder why so many. None of these guys could point to anything that they've done for the world other than their own families. It's just like. I don't know. What are we going to do, Truth Seeker, man? It's like everyone is so close-minded. Everyone has already made up their mind. Everybody already knows what they totally believe in is 1,000,000% correct, whether it's politics or religion. I'm not going to have time for a call-in show today. No. I cannot take calls because if I take a call, the whole stream freezes. Yeah, I know, man. It's just like everybody in this nation is taken by religion and politics. It's so frustrating. It's just so frustrating. And I kept making the point to them. I'm like, okay, you guys see the politics is all evil and a lie. And I was like, why do you think that they all put their hand on the Bible and all claim to be Christians? But yet you think this religion is part of the solution? See, they wouldn't address it. I hate the way people are too. You ask them questions and they won't address it. They ignore it because they know it's a problem in their thing, and then they just skip on to something else. Yeah, religion, realign, New Testament, New World Order. It all goes hand in hand. King Richard TV's got a decode. Actor Michael Kopsa dead at 66 on the day, leaving 66 days left in the air. Wow, it's just like Ash Carter dead at 68 on the day, leaving 68 days left in the air. What else is new? Can I shout out your boy, JCM1? He's my biggest fan. Is he really? Okay. JCM1. All right. Guess he needs some attention. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Money, religion, politics, all the things that control people. Okay, the person who keeps spamming the same thing over and over. Can you stop? I already did it, so you don't need to keep spamming it. Nothing worse than a spammer. Yeah, again, people are just stuck in their ways. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like we have to invent something that people can consume that stimulates brain activity. But yeah, I also wish people would stop like sending me, because I hate, so many people send me information when someone's having a conversation talking bad about me or Gematria, and then I end up in their stream And then I just regret that I even went in there because it's just like, and why are you guys even watching these people? I mean, like, do you really watch people that are just so low functioning with just such boring, mundane opinions? Like, I don't even understand why Christians are on YouTube. Everybody knows about the Bible. Everybody knows about this bullshit ass story that has polluted the world and divided the world and done nothing positive for the world. And for anyone who's hurt by those words, I'm sorry. That's the truth. It's just like I made the point to those guys. I said, the story of the Bible in this country where we now live is it was used as the reason to murder all the people who already lived here. They were said to be godless heathens because they didn't have this religion, But we can't even talk to each other because no one can have a conversation. Almost no one has any listening skills in America, too. That's the thing I noticed when I would say something to them. It's like they didn't really let it even sink in at all. They just responded back with just like whatever their next talking point was. It's like, did you just hear what I just said? I mean, so... yeah, no listening skills in America, very low IQs, really dumb people who think they're smart. That's my biggest problem in America, just really dumb people who think they're smart. And